Hey, Ansa, are we here?
Hi, Jerry. Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. I'm going to grab the presenter and we'll be, once he gets up here, we'll be ready to go live.
Okay, great. Thanks.
One, two, check, check.
I have a cheat sheet.
You have a cheat sheet?
Oh, yes.
You recording? Good morning. I'm actually going to abstain. Really ADD, so I'm going to get him like pace a lot. I apologize. So my name is Colin Graham. I'm the director of esports at Davenport University. No, we are not in Iowa. We are located in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Today, we're going to present to you guys about international recruitment. My experience in international recruitment is fairly recent. The one thing I'll tell people is if you're trying to recruit students internationally, it's just like regular recruitment. You kind of treat the students all the same way. You go through the same processes. For us, when we're recruiting, we have three big things. We have what we call rank, fit, and need. If we're recruiting a student internationally, I think the first one kind of falls off. We know where their skill level is. Fit is super big for us. So in terms of recruitment, when we are recruiting, we vet them. We go through all their stats. We go through whatever pages they have, trackers. So yep, this is good for us. Then we hand them off to our international admissions rep. If you have an international admissions rep in your school, I highly suggest you get to know them. They are phenomenal. They are rock stars. I praise all of our admissions reps daily. They work their absolute tails off to make sure that I can get students in a timely manner so I can do what I need to do best. From there, we get them involved in our Discord servers. We'll touch on this a little bit later, talk about inclusivity of students coming in, feeling like they're not ostracized. There is a culture shock coming from a different country to the US. And then from there, we bring them on campus. We go through the visa process. We get them accepted. We make sure that they have all of the right credentials. Make sure there's the hurdle of like they have to have X amount of liquid cash before they can come over, and we can kind of dive into like things to offset that. And then, yeah.
So hi, everybody. My name is Fernando. I'm the head esports coach at UHSP in St. Louis and originally from Brazil. So I'm here to talk about a little more on what Colin's going to say. And things that are important, basically the do's and don'ts of when an international student is talking to you, up to their arrival, up to documents that needs to be done, things that need to be done, and when, how, and why to do those things. So I think the most important thing, like Colin mentioned, is very important to know if they fit in your program, in your institution, and as well as in your location. So very important to see where the person comes from. So for example, if you are in a college by the beach, in the most beautiful beach ever, and you get someone from Siberia, they might not like it because it's too hot, right? So the same way, if you get a college that you go to minus 25 degrees, you might not do well with a person from Brazil. So little things like that make a difference when the student's trying to adapt to the US. Other things like food, culture, habits also play a role in that. So I'll be talking about that a little bit later today. I have a cheat sheet.
Yeah, I know you got a cheat sheet. So I know we talked about like the recruitment thing. So a lot of my scope will be through the lens of CSGO and Valorant.
Yes.
That's where we've had all of our success. If you follow CSGO, yes, Davenport is an okay school in CSGO. We do all right.
Better than that.
We're okay.
Better than that.
So this year we started diving a little bit into the international pool. We found a couple of fantastic players. One of them goes by the name of Switcher, comes out of Estonia. I have an absolute rock star of a coach. His name is Colin Thor. He goes by Koi. He was able to locate the student, go through the process. I said, look, find the student, tell me what you want. bring me to conversations. We'll do this. So set up a Discord call, talk to mom and dad, made sure that we went through, this is the process. This is what college in America is. A lot of questions I get is, I understand that you have esports in the US at a university. I have no clue how that works. I don't know how the scholarship structure works. I don't know about the cost. What is it going to take for me to get over there? And so we sat down with mom and dad. Now, granted, Dennis did a lot of the translating for us. Mom and dad's English weren't great. So he did most of we would talk to him, we'd hear him talk to them in Estonian and go back and forth, right?
And to add on that, very important thing on this phrase that he said is, we start with the student, mom, and dad. Especially when you're dealing with international, if you deal with an American, you should have the parents in the call either way. But when dealing with international students, it's very important to have the parents on the call, because not only students forget to tell things to their parents on a regular basis, also when you're dealing with internationals, things will be mistranslated if it's not done on point. Because sometimes even the students' English is not the best. Very few times you're gonna get someone that gets a 120 on an IBT TOEFL. So therefore, they're gonna have words that they don't know. So if they translate something to their parents look confused, make sure to talk to the student like, do you understand what I'm saying on this point specifically? I wanna say 8 out of 10 times, they're gonna say, can you explain that? But if you don't take the initiative and look at the facial expressions on the parents, you won't get that. So make sure details matter a lot, especially with the parents on the call.
I would say the speed at which you talk is also very important.
Yeah.
I'm up here, you can guys tell I talk fairly fast. During the conversation with Dennis's parents, I had to massively slow down the way that I communicate my information. Very slow, very deliberate, avoid turns of phrase, avoid idioms, things that just don't translate from one language to the other. And mom and dad ask questions. What's the cost? Well, here's our cost for 12 credit hours or 15 credit hours. I've had to explain what a credit hour is, because that doesn't translate very well either. They're like, well, what does that mean? Well, it means essentially you're taking 4 classes and you kind of have to break down the structure of an American university and how that works. And after that, it was a lot of well, what's the cost? What do we need to do? Unfortunately, a lot of times my answer is, especially for internationals, we're going to connect you with your international admissions rep. She will walk you through everything. She'll help set up your timeline. She'll help set up whenever you need to get all of your paperwork in, and she'll work you through that process. One thing that we've learned this year that was tough, for US students, we can recruit pretty much up to the deadline. I can recruit a student up until late August and get them in. It's no problem. They'll be able to do housing, get all their paperwork in, do their FAFSA. It's not an issue. For an international student, or whenever we start our classes, June 28th is our cutoff. I cannot recruit another student internationally after June 28th because they may not be on campus in time for the start of classes. So that was a big learning curve for me, because now I puts a decent level of urgency on recruiting international students. We don't really have a recruiting season in esports, right? You look at football, here's your season, here's your out of season, this is your signing day, go on and do what you need to do. We recruit year round. So now this has established a natural deadline for when I have to sign that player to make sure that they can be there on time. They can move in on campus. They can acclimate themselves to the culture. They can make sure that they're a good fit with their teammates. We can do boot camps. We can do everything we need to do.
Real quick question, by a show of hands, who here knows how the visa process works on the student side? Okay, so for the people, yeah, I know that, don't worry. This is more than most people I talk to on a daily basis. For example, let's assume I'm going to Davenport, right? I'll speak with coach. Coach said, hey, you play well, you're a good fit, we want you here. Great. Talk to my mom, my dad, we got this scholarship. My job now is to go get the papers that a university needs to give me my I-20, which is a document that allows me to go to the consulate to get a visa, okay? That I-20 basically states that I have an offer to go to American University, and that will allow me to get a visa in the consulate. For that I-20, one of the hardest things to get is the proof of income or affidavit of support, which all schools require a different one for different purposes. Check with your international student advisor. He or she will have that information. There's 2 ways to do that. Or I'm from a rich family and I just show you my bank account, which 95.9% of the time is not like that at all. And the other way is you can go to a bank and get your bank manager to sign a letter saying, me, manager, whatever, I certify that little Johnny has this amount on their bank account to support their studies in America, okay? That in itself takes at least a couple days to a week, depending on the bank, depending on the country. After that, once we get the I-20, which is after that, we have to schedule a visa interview with the embassy, with the consulate in this case, sorry. On average, after COVID, that is taking about 3 to 5 months if there is no cancellations, depending on the country, okay? That's why probably you have the deadline. And that will happen to every international student. Now, granted that if you're recruiting someone from Australia, that should be faster because not many Aussies come here. When they do is for sports, specific sports like tennis and other things. But countries like Brazil, where we sport for soccer, tennis, esports, and a bunch of other things, the consulates are packed. So that's just something for you guys to keep in mind as well when you're talking to international recruits.
Another thing to keep in mind is that academic records do not translate one-to-one. So we have a student coming to us from Sweden in January. We had an issue with him because the grades that he received in Sweden did not directly translate to the grade system that we have in the US. So unfortunately, he actually missed the mark. And we asked him like, hey, what's your GPA? He's like, well, this is what I did. And even talking about the classes that he took, it almost sounded like he had been to university because how they phrase different colleges and different levels of education in different countries doesn't translate one-to-one either. So that is another level of things that will take time. That actually probably took us a few weeks to actually go sit down, find the direct translation, figure out what his GPA was on a US scale, and like a 4.0 scale, and if he would be accepted and if he need to take additional classes.
Another thing is we do not have eligibility issues right now when it comes to classes. But when I was coaching tennis in a NCAA school, I'm a former collegiate tennis player, by the way. We are recruiting a guy from France that for some reason, his high school was lacking one biology class. So for the first whole year, our number one of the team was ineligible. That was a mistake made by my head coach at the time. Nothing to do about that after the kids on campus. But whenever we move to a process where our recruitment and eligibility will be more stable and standard, classes, which classes your school need for the student to be accepted and for the student to be eligible are very important things to notice. Yes. 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 So for international students, you're allowed to stay 5 years in the US with a 1-year extension called an OPT, which is pretty much a 1-year green card that allows you to work and reside in the US. The F1 visa, which is the visa that allows you to come to study in the US, that is renewable for a master's degree or a PhD or whatever other degree you want to take, but it's not automatic. You have to go back to your country, to the embassy, and redo the whole process, just like it's a new visa. Then you also get an OPT after your master's or whatever higher degree you get. For people on STEM, science, technology, and engineering, mathematics, the OPT has a 1-year extension. So it goes 5 years in the visa or 4 until you graduate, 1 year of OPT, 1 year of extension, then back to your country or renew and get another F1 visa for a higher education program. Good question.
I actually didn't know that.
That's what I'm here.
Like I said, this is our first year doing that. So I guess on top of that, also make sure that your scholarships that you have at your university line up with that. So for us, that wouldn't be an issue. Our university scholarships, as well as our athletic scholarships, are good for 5 years. And I'm sure because Davenport has had international students, there's a reason why they're good for that long.
One thing that I want to bring to your attention is when you're talking to a student, raise your hand if you talk about tuition. Raise your hand if you talk about total cost. Good, good. A lot of coaches that I talk to, they say, oh, when you come here, your tuition is going to be this much. And then the international student comes and it's triple the price because there was no room and board mentioned, no fees. Some schools require a specific laptop or whatever equipment. Make sure when you talk to internationals, if you're going to say the word tuition, it's a bad word to begin with because they do not know what that means. But if you say the word tuition, make sure you say, this is tuition that's just for the school. The full price is that. Make sure you explain that very carefully because when you say tuition to an international student, you say tuition is 10,000. They come here expecting to spend 10,000, not 10,001. Does that make sense to everybody? Very, very important.
Maybe the best way to phrase that would be cost of attendance.
There we go.
I know for Davenport, all of our admissions reps, whenever a student is accepted and they get in, they're sent an estimated cost of attendance. That includes academic and athletic scholarships that are on there. It may not include smaller grants or scholarships that were outside, but that is one big thing that I nailed down with students. Whenever I'm talking to them about the cost of the school, this is international and domestic. This is your cost of attendance. This is what you're going to pay for in the entire year, including all of your fees. All the information is typically public on all university websites, but not all university websites are easily navigatable. And so sometimes I will just have screenshots. I'm like, screenshot, 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 screenshot. Here is your housing. Here's your tuition. Here's your fees. Here is a breakdown. I'll do the math for the students. And that's also helpful as well for international and domestic. It's like, here is the math. Here is the dollar amount that you will be looking to pay when you come on our campus. So you know what to prepare for. And because international students have to show the bank manager note that they have that cash on hand, that is extremely helpful for them. I know for us through our process, at least if I remember correctly, the scholarship amount that we offer them, both academic and athletic, can offset that amount. So that way mom and dad that are having their son or daughter translate to them what this cost of attendance is, have an idea of how much money they need to pay for their student to come over to the US to get an education.
Yeah, go ahead. No. The rules is based on your university. Every university has a different housing rules. Some says all 4 years, some says first year, some says up to junior year. It goes from school by school. Legally speaking, by the USCIS, which is a great resource for you guys, United States, something immigration services, custom immigration services. They do not have a guideline for housing as far as I'm aware. If change, it's new, but they did not have it within the past 5 to 6 years. I was gonna say
For us, it's preferred to be on campus.
yes, it's preferred.
Just like the online student angle, you want your students to be there in person to take in the culture, to get used to other students, to have a feel for campus life. So if they're living off campus and they're commuting 30 minutes here and there, and then they just go back to their apartment and they just hang out and that's it, they miss out on a lot of the experiences that can be provided to them on campus. So for us, our push is on campus, at least for year one. Dennis will be living on campus at Davenport, but after that, it'll be a conversation of, okay, what do you want to do? Do you have the ability to move off campus? I think for some people, it's easier to say, I have this amount I need to pay the school. This is how much for my meal plan. That's in my cost of attendance. I know what that number is. Whereas opposed, if you move off campus, what's my rent per month? Can I get accepted into this apartment complex? How much food do I eat? What are my travel costs? Because our school is very small. Our international students that live in any of our dorms on campus, it's 5 minutes to the lab. It's 5 minutes to any class. They don't have to have a car. They don't have to have a license. They don't have to get insurance. So I think for on campus, I think it would be preferred, but we don't require.
And I agree with Colin. From personal experience, the first year, which is probably the most important year, as well as the beginning of the second, which will be the third semester, ideally on campus. It's very important for us to get acclimated to the campus. I'll use myself as an example. I went to a 4-year school and I changed on the second year because I couldn't stand the place. Granted, that was not even the school's fault. Now that I think about it, I know whose fault it was, but it's the little things that sometimes will make the massive amount of difference for the international student. I'll go over those. I have a cheat sheet here later. I'll go over the do's and don'ts, but yeah, 1 year at least makes a difference. Yes, so depends on the country. So for example, I have a Brazilian passport. I'm a Brazilian citizen. I get in 160 something countries in the world without a visa or getting there and say, hey, I came here for a visit, stamp my passport for whatever. And then normally, like when I went to Europe, they stay my passport for a couple months. So I had a couple months in Europe. I stayed 2 weeks. But certain countries will not have that. So for example, I need a visa for the US. Canadian citizens do not. I think they need a special permit or something. But if I go to Canada, I need a Canadian visa as a Brazilian. So I might need to get on the embassy. I might need to go to the consulate. I might just show up at the border and they stamp it. Each country has a different need for whatever country you're going to. US is pretty standard. Most people need to get a visa to their consulate. Canada, situational, and then you have to check country by country. The easiest thing you can do is go on Google and say, hey, I'm from this country, like for example, France. Do French people need a visa for Canada? And then follow the consulate, the French consulate or the Canadian consulate and figure it out.
And does that include just like, let's say we have an international student in Michigan and we just want to drive across the border, they would have to have a separate visa, or is like, no, I have this passport from this country I'm from, please stamp, I'm coming over here for 2 days and I'm coming back. Because I think that's the primary question. So we'll be doing a lot of land events. Being in Michigan, I have an enhanced license. I can drive back and forth whenever the heck I want. I pay like $40 extra on my license when I renew it, and I'm good to go.
Yeah.
But if I have a student coming from Estonia, does he just need to have his passport? They stamp it at the border, he goes and comes back and there'll be no issues, or he's need extra paperwork?
So whenever an international student moves out of the US, all the documents need to be taken and brought back. So it's not like they're redoing the documents. You keep the same documents, but you need to present them at immigration every single time. So it's not because, for example, I go to Davenport on my freshman year. I get there, everything's great. I go home for the summer. When I come back, if I'm missing one document, my entry is denied. I will not get in the country again. The same thing goes when you cross the border. So if I go to Canada for a tournament, when I come back, they're going to ask the driver, is everybody here American? Now you have the choice of lying, which I don't recommend. I do not recommend that. You say, hey, these are Americans. We are part of a school team. This guy is an international from whatever. Here are his documents, or here are her documents. And the immigration is going to look at it, stamp it, good to go. But to get out of America to another country, in this case, Canada, you need to see if Canada requires a visa. And that goes from country. Each country has a different rule.
Good to know.
There we go.
Look, you guys are basically Detroit adjacent. There's no reason for me not to be there. I think probably from here, the best thing would be kind of like bringing students in and talking about fitting into the culture and making sure that they work where you're at. I know I'll talk about Dennis consistently. So Dennis is from Estonia. One of our students has actually taken upon himself to do something very interesting. We're worried about Dennis coming in and culture shock and feeling ostracized. We don't have any other international students on campus from his nationality. We actually don't have a very big international presence on campus in general. So we don't want him go to practice, do his matches, then sit on his PC and talk to all of his friends from Estonia and be like, I hate it here. I don't want to be here. This is terrible. Everybody hates me, right? So one of our other CSGO players has taken upon himself to learn Estonian independently, just wants to do it. He said, this is what I want to do. I want to connect with a student. I want to be able to have conversations with him, and is learning conversational Estonian just under his own volition, which I applaud massively, because that's huge. I mean, you're learning another language just because you feel like it and because you want to connect with another student. But for us, that was a big step, as well as what I talked about getting on the Discord server earlier. All of our players are absolute goons and meme lords, and you want your players that are coming in to know that they feel welcomed and that they understand what they're walking into. So a lot of it is like, hey, they're coming in, we're planning on them being here in 2-3 months, make them feel welcome, play pugs with them, talk to them, hang out, do whatever. Just make sure when they come here, they don't feel like they're not a part of, and to use the phrase that people use, the family, right? Like they want to feel like they belong to your group of people. And so that's one thing that we've done. Once we get on campus, we'll do more campus outings, taking places as a group. And then as we have more international students, I'm sure it will help as well when they have more people from their home country there that they can relate to.
So one thing that I want to bring to everybody's attention is work, because I know who has international students, they want to work. Can they work? What do you guys think? Yes or no? Hands up for yes. There we go. That's the question I needed. So they are allowed to work on campus as long as not federal work study. They're not allowed to work off campus unless they get a CPT. So do y'all remember what I said the OPT was, that you're allowed to work 1 year in the US CPT is the same thing for during your academic year, but they changed the law recently where you need to replace one of your classes with your CPT. So for example, I'm a graduate athletic trainer. So when I was doing my training, I got a job at a physical therapy place that I could not have taken. But one of my classes was clinical practicum, which is go and do what you're supposed to do. So I changed that class for my job, got authorized by my international advisor as a CPT. Then I could work and receive money from outside the university, because when you're on the F1 visa, the only source of income you can receive is through the university. Example being, my team played a tournament in Wichita recently, and there was a cash prize. Well, I had a guy from Brazil, and I told him, we're going to the tournament, there's going to be a cash prize. If we win the tournament, you do not get the prize. You cannot get the money. He understood, we played, we did well. He gave his part to his teammates, and everybody was okay with that because they cannot receive any money that's not through the university. Now, what we did was we're able to send the money to the university, and the university added on the scholarship. That is doable. I know that question always comes as soon as I start talking about that, because yes, the university can receive the whole prize pool and then divide between the players as scholarship parts. But the player cannot get the money from anywhere else other than your institution that is on the F1 visa. Who pays the grant? Who do they pay to?
Do they route it through the university before it hits the student?
That's something you need to double check with your international advisor, but on the technicality, yeah. So that is something you need, that is something you need to check with your international advisor, but on the technicality, the grant goes to the university that's applied to the student account. What the government cares is that goes to the university, not the student. Anything after that, they don't care. Yeah, technically, yes. Technically, double check with the international advisor, because there might be some gray area that I'm not aware of. Again, I'm not an immigration expert by far. I'm not. I'm just saying the things I lived through. So everything we say here, double check with the international advisor. But the technicality is the money has to go to the university, period. The student can only receive funds or paychecks or stipends or whatever in hand by the place that shows on the F1 visa. Question? Yep. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that feels a lot like whenever we deal with prize pools. I mean, I know us internally, basically anything that comes from a collegiate event, and in this situation, even non-collegiate for an international student, everything gets routed through the university first. Finance department says, yes, this makes sense. And then it's distributed to each student evenly. So as long as it has that paper trail and the university is stamped off when it's gone to them, it sounds like technically don't cut a check to a student. Outside that, as long as it goes to university, you should be okay. But yes, check with your international admissions rep. They will know that information inside and out. So a tangible good.
On a technicality, that's fine. So everything that I said now, there is a loophole to it. Every little rule, every little immigration rule I told now, there is a loophole to it. I do not recommend anybody exploring those loopholes, but they exist. There are colleges that I'm not going to say names that I know they pay stipends to international and domestic athletes for NAIA. I know that for a fact because my friend played at the college. My friend was top 600 in the world in tennis, and he took a year off or 4 years off professional to just study. I know my friend, he didn't study. But so I know there are loopholes. Do not recommend you using those.
This seems like a really good moment to say, apparently what has been said in this session should probably stay in this session.
No, but seriously, everything we say here, double check with your international advisor, because there are ins and outs and gray areas. There are that could be a massive issue to your institution, to your team, and to you. Okay, if you pay an international student on the side that not only deports the student, which makes he or she not be able to come back in the US for 10 years. And when they reapply for the visa, you will be denied. They say 10 years, but it's lifetime. Unless something else happens, but normally it's lifetime. You will probably throw in jail because it's a federal crime. So keep that in mind, okay? That we're joking, we're having fun, but it's a very important topic to not do those things.
Yeah, that's all.
Yes. Yes. And that is a great point. Every international student, and I say that because I know many of them that comes to you and say, oh, but I was just helping my friend. I did not know I could not get money. That's a lie. That's a straight up lie. All of them from day one that they step foot in America, they know they should not make money. Guaranteed your international advisors will say that many, many times. If they don't, then you need to talk to your international advisor because that should be repeated over and over for the first week.
And make sure you stay on top of your national advisors.
Yes.
They're people too.
Yep.
Just like you should be in touch with your domestic admissions reps, make sure you stay on top of your national ones as well. In our situation, we only have one. So if we have a ton of international students coming in any given academic year, she's going to be absolutely flooded. But what I do is I send her friendly pings. Hey, by the way, have you heard from so-and-so? Have you done such and such? What is the state on this? Because I know that we need to get this done and that we can get them in the door and that they are prone to mistakes just like everyone else.
So one thing that most people don't know, when an international student comes to your university, the legal person responsible for that student is not you or the institution, it's the international advisor. Normally, that is a 1 to up to 10 years responsibility. Why 10 if degree is only 4 years? Well, some degrees might be 5. After that, there's OPT, 6. If there's a STEM, 7. Okay, so that alone is 7 years. Now, if the student is a dummy and has to take other classes because he or she failed a couple, that's 8 or 7.5. So only when that students decide and say to your advisor, hey, I'm got my degree, thank you for everything, I'm going back to my country, that's when the bound is broken. Until that moment is the international student's responsibility. And if that student goes to a master's degree right off the OPT or right after graduating, the international advisor from that school has to talk to the international advisor to that school to transfer the responsibility. Does that make sense to everybody? Good. All right. So,
At least what we had talked about that we were going to
Yes.
cover. So we did getting them in the door, the process, the visas, the money, and then I think we're gonna go to Q&A anyways. So I'm gonna get Carl first, and I got you next, right?
I have a list of do's and don'ts that I'm going to go over because I have a bunch of things that nobody thinks about, but questions first. That's very important. Yes, go. Beautiful question. It's a nightmare. You go first because you have more experience. than
Yeah. So I rephrase things. I've said a lot of us is just dumb luck with with me. We'll put something out there right now. Social media is great because everybody's on the same platform. Hey, we're looking for so-and-so from international, from a EU, Brazil, whatever. Here's a form. Please fill this out. We'll be in contact. Usually it's what's your Discord, what's your Twitter. We'll reach out to you. Make sure your DMs are open, or they'll cold DM us. So I've had students right now that have been DMing me this weekend from the UK, Ireland, and Estonia for Valorant specifically. And it was, we're interested in doing this, and they reached out. And so from then it's working through the time difference and trying to find a time that works with everyone. I know when we talked to Dennis, we worked around his time. So we didn't put ourselves in a situation where like, you need to adjust to us. We adjusted to him. But a lot of it's just like, I think a lot of students want the opportunity. As soon as they hear about it, they want to learn more. And I just ask them, what do you want to know, right? Give me all of the list of things you want to know. I will break it down for you. And then after that, if you want to have more conversations, we'll set up a Discord call.
Just want to add, yes, but just want to add to the time thing. He said, for example, one of my players right now is in Japan. So I know, who here knows what time is in Japan right now? You don't need to. It's 14 hours. 14 hours ahead. Okay. So it's exactly, it's 14 hours ahead. Now my family is from Brazil. I automatically know that's 2 hours behind. If I'm on the East Coast, is 1. If I'm on California, it's 4. So those things when you're talking to international students, it's very important. Do not try to memorize what time, like, oh, I'm talking to him at 6, there is 9. So every day there's a 3-hour gap. No, just memorize the gap. Just say, hey, from here to whatever country that is this amount of gap. That's it. Don't try to memorize times. It's not going to work.
Google's your friend, by the way.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So for the people online that did not hear the question is the difference between servers in a specific game. Do you want to go or?
Yeah, because actually we do.
Go.
So for CSGO, EU is typically better.
Yep.
The rule of thumb is for ESCA, if you guys don't know what that is, that's a basically your amateur and semi-pro ladder goes from open through ECL and then the pro leagues. So for us, our rule of thumb was if a player is an open in EU, that's the equivalent to an IM player here in the US. And we just kind of take that into account. We also have HLTV for CSGO. So if you have an HLTV page, you're probably a fairly highly skilled player. You can also face it's fine. But we want to see HLTV because it'll show competitive matches as well.
Yeah.
So you say, who have you played with? What have you played against? And that's why I'm very fortunate to have the coach I do in the CSGO scene because he knows those differences and he can identify it and we go from there.
Yeah. For League of Legends, if it's not Korea, China, or Europe, it's all the same nightmare. The only difference is Brazilian server, they'll curse more. NACE server, they'll throw more tantrums. Turkish server, they're more aggressive when they talk. Then it all changes to the same point. Our pro players in the high level, for League of Legends specifically, they do not like playing ranked games. That goes to Brazil, that goes to NA, that goes to Turkey. Anywhere other than Europe, China, and Korea, pro players do not like playing Challenger on solo queue. Even Korea now is getting a big problem with that. Faker suing people. You should check that. That's fun. Yeah, faker suing people. Yeah.
The St. Francis guy has been waiting for a while.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So
All right. So for the online people, the question is what levels we're looking other than high borderline professional levels. And the other thing is what the international students are looking for when they're looking for an American university. So in my experience, and I speak from Brazil, the players are looking for 2 things only. 1, the chance to play competitive at a high level and maybe transition to pro. 2, to get out of the Brazil. It's pretty simple. Brazil is a nightmare right now. People want to get out. It's straight up simple like that. It's not a good country at the moment. Simply stating that. Sorry if anybody here is Brazilian and I hurt your feelings, but it is what it is. I am Brazilian too. I do not know about the other countries, but I know the big one is some players want to just get out of their country and the others want to try to play on a team environment with a chance of going pro, period.
I think that needs to be a part of your vetting process.
Yes.
That's domestic and international. Have very honest conversations with your players and what are they looking for.
100%.
My first year of being a coach, a lot of your conversations with players are, here's this college, here's what we offer. We want to be competitive, but like we have this baseline we need to start with. We've started running into players where your conversation shifts. They are purely looking for pro opportunities in the future because they know that the structure of what we're building for given title can give them those opportunities. I am very much in the camp of you need to have open and honest conversations with your recruits and know exactly what they want. If they want out of a country, but it works for you, I don't think that's inherently a bad thing. it's a win-win situation for everyone.
Yep.
But I would rather them be blunt and honest with me instead of being like, no, I just really love your school and I love the campus. But in the back of their head, like, no, I just want to get the hell out.
One thing that you mentioned is for people that are looking in ranks, they're not challenger or global or radiant. If you're looking something like a plat, like a mid plat or a low diamond, 95% of the times these students will not believe that there's a scholarship available because on their mind, for me to get a scholarship, I need to be the top of the top of the top. But you can be building up a JV team. You can be building up a program where you want to start and develop players, right? So make sure you have that conversation. Say, hey, we're not looking for which game you're looking for. Valorant. I'm not, just go to the student and say, hey, I know you're not a Radiant. I'm not looking for a Radiant. I'm not even looking for Immortal. I want someone Plat Diamond because I want to develop a grassroots team and get the team getting better. And then in 4 years, all our players will be Diamond. And then I'll start recruiting Ascendant or Immortals. Okay, so make sure you explain that to the player because in straight to their head, they're going to be like, well, I'm just Plat. Why he's offering me a scholarship? Makes no sense. It's a normal thinking that we have.
The man in the Michigan State quarter zip.
Yeah. Yeah. Why? Oh, the cost for the student, not the cost for you to reach out. Okay, got it. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so for the online people, the question is how to close the gap on the cost for international students.
So I actually was talking to some people about this before the session. So our international students, we tell people our average scholarship for athletics is in esports is about $5,000 a year. Our international students will on average receive considerably more because of that specific reason. Luckily, because we're looking at international students, my conversations with my admin have changed. They're more willing to be flexible on those scholarship dollars because they know that the student is coming from overseas and the monetary windfall they can get from the student having to pay X amount of dollars, right? But we can offset the lack of them getting those federal funds by increasing their scholarship dollars from my side of things. So my academic scholarship will just go straight up. We've averaged anywhere from $10,000 to $18,000 a year for an international student for athletics because there was no way we were going to be able to get them overseas unless we offset that amount. So that's how we do it. It'll differ from college to college, but if you are offering scholarships and you have that opportunity, talk to your admin and have those conversations because they're still going to get a large amount. Like some of these, universities are businesses. They want to generate revenue. This is a revenue generating thing for them to bring in students. So that makes sense to them. You find a student, you find someone that's going to be great for your program. It's going to be a fantastic fit. There should be a middle ground where you can compromise and you can get what you want to be able to bring in that student and get those internationals on your campus, and they can get what they want by having more internationals on campus.
Another way is always sponsors and grants, but sponsors could be a good one. For example, let's not think about our traditional sponsor, right? Let's not think about Dell, Intel, NVIDIA, Coke, Monster, Red Bull. Let's not think about those because those are global brands. Go on Google. Again, Google is a great friend. Go on Google and say biggest Brazilian companies if you're looking for Brazil. If you're going for Finland, biggest Finland companies. Get a company that's only to that country that does whatever they do. Send them an email, say, hey, I'm a coach from this university. I'm talking to a student from your country. Would you like to support the student with any amount of money and rebrand your company? Like, thank you, company X and X, for helping us on bringing this student to campus. Maybe the company says, hey, we're gonna put in $5,000. That is 1,000 and something for a semester per year. Helps. Not solve the problem, but helps. Do that, and maybe you get companies. It's another way to do it. Anybody, any other questions? Because I go into the little cheat sheet that I have, because I'm gonna take seat for that. Okay. Anything else?
I think I'm good.
All right. People, they're online. If you have any questions, just type it in the chat. We'll read right after this. So talk about the announcements and the full price, to not mention just tuition. One thing that's very important is recruiting. There are third-party companies that will help with the recruiting. Brazil has a few. I know Europe has a few. They do that for tennis. They do that for soccer. Tell those companies, do you have anybody for esports? Look those companies. Type in recruiting companies Europe on Google. You show up companies that do that for other traditional sports, and try to force them to get esports going. If there's the company doing, they normally do all the paperwork. If the company is there's no third-party company helping them, you will need to help the student to understand every step of the process. Okay, that might be admissions, that might be doing a recommendation letter, that might be doing a personal statement that changes from school to school. But normally, if the student has money and hires a third-party company, the third-party company is going to do that for them. If not, you guys have to help the academic advisor and the student, because they will have a lot of questions. Thankfully, we do esports and Discord exists. So use Discord a lot for communication with your students if you can, and emails as well. When the student decides to come, flight itinerary. One thing that most people say is, oh, I'm coming from whatever to whatever, and I'll arrive there at this time. No. Connections and flight numbers are your friend. Okay, if the first flight has a problem and gets delayed out of their country, they miss the connection, they miss the second flight, you're going to be in the airport for a while. So always get all the flight numbers. It's very, very important in case of anything that happens, delays, anything. When you're picking up the student, two things that are very important. First, try to go if you can. And being you or someone else, make sure they're wearing school gear. Do not go in a suit and tie. Does not help the student that's coming. They know, like, oh, I'm going to UHSP. They're purple and yellow. Great. I'm wearing a black suit in the airport. Like, if my picture is not very good on Discord, or if, God forbid, I'm a coach with an anime picture on it, they're not, I seen that. They're not gonna know who you are. Sometimes they don't go on the athletics part of your website and see your face. So make sure that those are important things. You can have a banner on your phone, like a LED banner, just say the student's name. That helps as well. Very, very important. Do not make the student wait in the airport. I seen that, and I've been through that when I was a student, that, hey, I know you just flew 14 hours from Brazil, but there's this guy coming from Australia. He arrives in 2.5 hours. Let's just sit here in the airport and wait. Don't be that person. Don't make the student wait for another student. Now, if it's something that's like a 15 minutes to half an hour, get the bags. Hey, you want to get a bite? Let's go get a drink. Go get you some water. Stall. Stall is one thing. That's okay. Waiting is not. Don't make the kid that just flew 14, 15, 20 hours wait for 3 more. Going to the dorms, straight for shower or food. Okay, very important. Who here took international flights before? What's the first thing you're gonna do after the flight? Okay,
Sleep and shower.
Shower. Okay, shower is normally the first one. Sleep is a close second. Very few people will be hungry after the plane. There's cases, but normally shower. So into the dorm for shower. If the cafeteria is about to close and you really want to take them to the cafeteria so they see your amazing cafeteria, fine, go to the cafeteria first, but shower right after. Do not be the person that's like, oh, so here's you're gonna have your classes. No, just shower, food, bed. You can do a quick show around after the student shower and ate. Like, if he's fed and clean, then, or she's fed and clean, then you can do the little quick tour, but be very specific. Be like, hey, so remember, that's your dorm. That's the cafeteria. We're getting breakfast tomorrow. This is our esports place that you can just go and play games if you're bored or if you can't sleep. The password for the computer is whatever. Here's your ID card so you can access it. Do you need me for anything? No, or I'm going to let you rest and have some time. Also, make sure you call your parents, okay? Do you want me to email your parents? Oh, no, I got it. Good. Call your parents, talk to them, let them know you arrived safe. Do not be the person that takes a campus tour when the kid arrives. Please do not be that person. Then meet again the next morning for breakfast or after breakfast. Okay, you can say, hey, you want to grab breakfast somewhere? Maybe you want to show them IHOP or something like that, Waffle House or whatever. Show them around. If not, let them wake up whatever time they want to wake up. Some people will be jet lagged. They do not want to be up at 7 or 8 for breakfast on campus. Let them rest and then show them around then. Okay, that's when you show the student around. One thing that's very, very important that you need to check with your academic advisor: pillows, blankets, and towels. They need to be on the room when the student arrives. Some students will not bring sheets. They will not bring pillows. They will not bring a blanket. They will not bring a towel. They just bring clothes. Those 3 things need to be in the room as soon as they arrive, because they need to shower, sleep in a comfy bed, and have a pillow. That's all. Everything else, take him to the Walmart next morning. Just make sure with your international advisor, if the student's not bringing those things, they need to be there. Now, if you have a protocol in your university where they stay that and the student knows that they're supposed to bring that, that's fine. What else? What else? Go ahead.
What would be the protocol? Like, so if the university just doesn't provide it, the coach or director going out and purchasing that from university funds to provide that to the student?
No, then in this case, if the university does not provide that, make sure you tell the athlete, hey, when you arrive, make sure you come in with a blanket and with the bed sheets and a pillow. Or you can be that person, say, hey, I'm going to take you real quick to Walmart so you can buy a pillow, you can buy or Bed Bath & Beyond or whatever. I'm going to take you there real quick so you can get what you need to sleep tonight and shower. And then tomorrow you go somewhere to buy, I mean, some students won't even bring deodorant, so you need to take them to Walmart the next day. So there is situations, but the most important thing is the pillow, the towel, and the sheets, and the blanket. Okay. Very important, check if school staff or especially teammates are available, because some teammates are local. So if they can take the student to Walmart and the next day, it's better than you doing it. Okay, that's when the bonding starts. That's where they need people to be active. So check if there's any teammates available. Now, here comes the fun part. You got to introduce them to the academic advisor and get a class schedule. Who here ever thought about explaining a student how classes work? For example, I did college in Brazil for a year. In Brazil, when you go to college, you sit on the classroom at 9 o'clock in the morning and you get out when the day ends. You do not switch classroom. The teachers go from classroom to classroom. So make sure, I know it sounds simple, but I've seen international students go into the first classroom, sit down, and just stay there. And I was like, what's your next class? Oh, it's whatever. Dude, that room. Oh, do we move? And I'm like, yeah. Oh, thanks. And they stand up and laugh. It's simple, but exists, okay? Documents and banking. Students will need a bank account. A few banks offer a student bank account with just the passport and a debit card for no fees. If you go to a bank and the bank say, oh, no, we have a yearly fee or a monthly fee, go to the next bank. International students can get an international account or just with a debit card, no credit card, and should have no fees. I have mine from Bank of America for 12 years. I had a Regions before. I believe Chase has as well. Just find a bank that works. Social Security and employment. Employment we've been over only on campus, only Monday to the university. Social Security, the student needs the passport, the I-20, and a letter from someone in the university say that they want to hire him. You, if you have an arena or a place that they can work, you can say, me, coach so-and-so, I want to hire this student for this position, and by these I'm requesting a social security. They show the letter to the social security office, they get a social security. It's simple, but it's important. Driver's license. People, as more as they should not, they will go to clubs. They'll go to bars. Some place allows 18, some place allows 21s. Very few places will allow foreigner documents. They will require passport. If the student goes to a place like that, which he or she will, and loses a passport, that is a whole different thing, because you have to get a new passport. You have to go again to the consulate to get the visa stamped on the new passport. So that's a whole different process that your international advisor would not be appreciative of. So if you're in a town where they do not accept international documents, make sure that the student or has a copy of the passport or finds a way to get a driver's license or any other documentation that are allowed in places like sometimes not even a club or a bar. Sometimes the guy goes to, or the girl goes to a restaurant and they want to order a beer. They need a document that's not a passport. Carrying passport around, it's a liability. And it's possibly more work for you and your international advisor. Does that make sense? I know those are all like silly things, but trust me, it makes a difference. Now, back of the page here, and I know I have a minute. Sorry, guys, I'm going to wrap it up real quick. Things that you need to notice based on the personality of the student. So by the arrival time, you already talk on Discord. I'm assuming you did a video call with the student and the parents, and I'm assuming you kind of talk to the student when he or she arrives in the airport, right? So you should have a clue of what the student personality is. If it's someone like me that doesn't stop speaking, if it's someone that's more quiet and reserved, if it's someone loud, someone quiet. So you get an idea of what the student is, right? After a couple weeks on campus and with teammates, pay attention to one, if the student is speaking less. If you see a student that comes in the airport and he or she is very talkative, and 2 weeks later, they're very introverted, or they're feeling a little bit homesick, or there are people making fun of their accents. Plain and simple. Now, I had my doubles partner, Jack, that he's from South Africa, and we were making fun of each other's accent. And it was silly, it was as a good joke. I had people in my team that did not do that in a silly, good joke way. It happens from people to, and people take it different. To me, I'm a confrontational person. I just said, shut up. Most people that just arrive in the country won't do that. So make sure if they start getting very quiet, there might be a problem brewing. If they have reclusion, if you don't see them on campus or anywhere, or if you go to the arena and they're not there and nobody saw them for like, oh, I saw him or her like 5-6 hours ago, I don't know where they are. If that starts happening more frequently, keep attention to that. Insomnia is a big one. Granted that jet lag exists, but after 2 or 3 weeks, jet lag should be gone. So if after a month, the student's still having problems sleeping and things like that, make sure you notice that. Over or under eating. Sometimes you just, let's assume you're the coach that goes to the cafeteria every day or every other day and you never see your student. Or sometimes you see your student bringing like 3 plates to the esports arena. That's something you might want to keep in mind. Other thing is the whole team eats in this table, the student's eating in the room or on the arena or on a completely separate table by him or herself. Those, if they're eating on a different table with a lot of people, that's totally fine. But if they're by themselves, they're isolating themselves, that's an issue. Keep in mind of that. Bad grades is another problem, especially for eligibility purposes. But don't expect a C student to become an A student. Base that on the SATs, ACTs, TOEFL, and high school GPA. If you have a guy that comes from high school getting aces in every class and in college is getting Cs, trust me when I say that, and I mean this in a non-offensive way, some high schools overseas are harder than some first-year colleges in America. If you get an A student and he starts or she starts getting Ds, Fs, Cs, it's a problem. If you get a C student that starts getting A's, B's, C's, that's a bonus. Any anger issues or crying, if you see the student just cried or is crying often with a puff face, or if they're playing a game and they're more angry than angrier than normal and they're hitting keyboards, hitting mice, or if you notice anything like that, is a big, big red flag. And now the biggest things, holidays. Whose campus closed on Thanksgiving? Are the international students allowed to stay on campus for Thanksgiving? Good. What about Christmas? Yes? Oh, most schools that I've talked to is a no. Who here does not allow people over on campus on Christmas? Okay, that's good. That's good. If they can go to a different dorm, that's great. But I know a lot of schools that will not allow them and just say, figure it out. That's a no bueno. That's not good. So make sure they have a place to go. Summer break. Okay, if they can stay a year, it's beautiful, but most schools will close during Christmas and summer break. And 2 out of 1, international students have to figure out, or someone has to house them. Not all of them will have the money to fly back to their countries. I myself got to a point that I was 6 years without seeing my family, straight in the US. Some people stayed more, some people stay less. Goes from financial situation and flights availability. Does that make sense to everybody? Sorry, that was a long list. I just want to make sure that I go over the big do's and don'ts. That makes a difference. I'll be here for as much time as you guys need me to talk to. Just let me know. Get my business card, send me an email, give me a call, smoke signal, whatever.
Please talk to him because I've learned a ton from this as well. With this being my first foray into international recruiting, this is huge. Some of those things, the do's and don'ts. Please reach out to you in mental health services that you have on campus. If you
Yes.
start seeing some of these issues,
Yes.
you have resources you can provide to those students. Do it as soon as you have it. All I have to do is I send an email to one person, they reach out to the student, we get the process started.
Yep.
You see any issues, if there's smoke, there may be fire, get it taken care of.
Also remember, as more as we want to help, we are not health care professionals most cases, and we're definitely not mental health professionals in most cases. We have proper people on campus to handle those issues. Make sure you use them, okay? All right, if nobody has any questions, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Online, no questions online. Good. Thank you.